After working hard for most of his life, Daniel Harper finally decided it was time to slow down. For years, he had been an engineer at a big aerospace company, designing machines and solving problems that seemed impossible at first. But now, in his early 60s, he felt ready to leave all that behind. He sold his house in the city and moved to a small, quiet town near the mountains. It was a place where people waved at each other on the street, and the loudest noise came from birds chirping in the trees. Daniel loved his new life. Every morning, he would sip coffee while sitting on his porch, watching the sun rise over the distant peaks. During the day, he took long walks through the forest trails, breathing in the fresh air and listening to the rustle of leaves. In the evenings, he spent hours in his garage, fixing old gadgets or building little inventions just for fun. It was peaceful, predictable, and exactly what he wanted after so many busy years. But one evening, everything changed. Daniel was sitting outside, enjoying the cool breeze, when he noticed something strange in the sky. At first, he thought it was just a trick of the light, a flicker, maybe, or a plane flying too high to hear. But then he saw them. 3 glowing orbs hovering silently above the forest. They moved in perfect formation, casting faint beams of light onto the ground below. Daniel's heart raced as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. Were they drones? Some kind of military experiment? Or something else? He stood there frozen, unsure whether to run inside or investigate further. Before he could decide, the orbs suddenly shot toward him with incredible speed. The bright flash blinded him for a moment, and when his vision cleared, he realized he wasn't standing in his yard anymore. Instead, he found himself lying on a smooth metallic floor in a room bathed in soft blue light. Panic set in as Daniel scrambled to his feet. The walls around him shimmered like liquid silver, and strange symbols glowed faintly along the edges of the ceiling. He looked around but saw no windows or doors, just a curved hallway stretching into the distance. His mind raced with questions. Where was he? How did he get here? And who, or what, had brought him? Before he could think too much about it, a group of tall figures entered the room. They were unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. Their bodies were sleek and slender, their skin reflecting light like polished metal. Large, almond-shaped eyes studied him curiously, and though they didn't speak right away, Daniel somehow knew they weren't hostile. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a calm, melodic voice. "Do not be afraid, Daniel Harper. You are safe." Daniel blinked in shock. "How do you know my name?" he asked, his voice trembling. The figure tilted its head slightly, as if amused by his question. "We have been observing your species for some time. You were chosen because of your unique qualities." "Chosen?" Daniel repeated, feeling more confused than ever. "For what?" The creature paused, its gaze steady. "To help us, and perhaps to help yourself." Before Daniel could ask more questions, the figures gestured for him to follow. Still overwhelmed, he hesitated for a moment, but eventually took a step forward. As he walked alongside them, he couldn't shake the feeling that his quiet retirement was about to take a very unexpected turn. As Daniel followed the strange beings through the glowing corridors, his mind raced with questions. The smooth floor beneath his feet felt warm, almost alive, and the air smelled faintly sweet, like flowers after a summer rain. Every step he took seemed to hum softly, as if the entire structure was responding to his presence. He wanted to ask more about where he was and why he had been taken, but the towering figures walked silently, their movements graceful and deliberate. After what felt like an eternity, they arrived at a large chamber filled with light. In the center of the room stood a circular platform surrounded by floating screens that displayed images Daniel couldn't quite understand. Strange symbols danced across the surfaces, shifting and changing in patterns that made his head spin. Standing near the platform was another figure, taller and more regal than the others. Her skin shimmered like gold, and her eyes glowed with an intensity that made Daniel feel both awestruck and uneasy. "Welcome, Daniel Harper," she said, her voice rich and commanding. "I am Syra, leader of the Verith." Daniel swallowed hard, trying to steady his nerves. What do you want with me?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Syra stepped closer, studying him with a look that seemed both curious and calculating. "Your species fascinates us," she began. "Humans are resilient, adaptable, and capable of great creativity. We have observed your world for many years, learning from your successes and your failures." Daniel frowned, unsure how to respond. "But why me? I'm just an ordinary guy. I fix machines, that's it." Syra tilted her head, as if considering his words. "You may see yourself as ordinary, but we see something different. Your technical skills are impressive, but it is your emotional strength that interests us most. You have lived a full life, faced challenges, and yet you carry no bitterness. That is rare among your kind, and valuable to us." Daniel blinked, struggling to process what she was saying. "So, you brought me here because I'm good with machines and I don't hold grudges." "In part," Syra replied, a hint of amusement in her tone. "But there is more. Our society values balance and harmony above all else. We believe that understanding other species can help us grow. By bringing you here, we hope to learn not only from your abilities, but also from your perspective." Before Daniel could respond, one of the other Verith approached, holding a small device that looked like a glowing crystal. Syra gestured for Daniel to take it. "This will allow you to communicate with us more easily," she explained. "It translates your thoughts into our language and vice versa." Hesitant but curious, Daniel reached out and touched the crystal. A warm sensation spread through his hand, and suddenly, he understood everything Syra had said without needing to think about it. It was as if her words flowed directly into his mind, clear and effortless. "Amazing," he murmured, staring at the device in wonder. Syra smiled, or at least, Daniel thought it might be a smile. "There is much you will discover here, Daniel. But first, let us show you our world." With that, she motioned for him to follow her onto the platform. As soon as he stepped on, the room dissolved around him, replaced by a breathtaking view of a planet unlike anything he had ever imagined. Towering cities floated in the sky, connected by streams of light. Below, vast forests shimmered with colors that shifted like waves. Rivers sparkled under twin suns, and strange creatures soared gracefully through the air. "This is Zaylora," Syra said, her voice filled with pride. "Our home, and now yours as well." Daniel stared in awe, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. This wasn't just some alien abduction, it was an invitation to a whole new world. And though he still didn't fully understand why he had been chosen, one thing was certain: his quiet retirement was over. Daniel stood on the platform, his eyes wide as he took in the beauty of Zaylora. The floating cities looked like something out of a dream, their spires glowing softly against the colorful sky. Below, the forests shimmered with hues of blue, green, and gold, while rivers sparkled like liquid diamonds under the light of two suns. Strange bird-like creatures soared gracefully above the trees, their wings trailing streams of glittering dust. It was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen, and for a moment he forgot to breathe. "This is incredible," he whispered, turning to Syra. "It's beautiful." Syra nodded, her golden skin catching the light. "Zaylora is a world of balance and harmony. Everything here serves a purpose, from the smallest plant to the largest city. We strive to live in unity with our environment." Daniel felt a pang of awe and a twinge of guilt. Earth, with its pollution and chaos, seemed so far away now. "You've built something amazing here," he said quietly. "I can't imagine how you managed it." "It was not easy," Syra admitted, "but we learned through trial and error. Now, perhaps, we can learn from you as well." Before Daniel could ask what she meant, the platform began to move again, carrying them toward one of the floating cities. As they approached, He noticed that the buildings weren't made of stone or metal, but seemed to be alive, their surfaces pulsing faintly with light. Bridges of energy connected the structures, and small crafts zipped through the air, leaving trails of sparkling mist behind them. When they landed, Daniel stepped off the platform and onto a street that felt oddly soft beneath his shoes. The air smelled sweet, like fresh fruit mixed with flowers, and the temperature was perfect. Not too hot, not too cold. Around him, Verith citizens went about their business, their movements fluid and graceful. Some glanced at him curiously, their glowing eyes filled with interest, while others simply nodded in greeting. "They know who I am?" Daniel asked, feeling suddenly self-conscious. "News travels quickly among us," Syra replied. "Your arrival has sparked much curiosity. Many are eager to meet you." Daniel frowned. "Why? I'm just a human. What's so special about me?" Syra smiled faintly. "To us, you represent something rare and intriguing. Your species is young but full of potential. You adapt, create, and survive despite great challenges. And you," she paused, looking at him thoughtfully, "you carry a quiet strength that draws attention." Daniel didn't know how to respond. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, even boring. The idea that anyone, let alone an entire alien civilization, might find him fascinating was hard to wrap his head around. As they walked, Syra led him to a grand structure that seemed to hum with energy. Inside, Daniel found himself in a luxurious suite filled with furniture that appeared to shift and change shape depending on how he looked at it. A large window offered a stunning view of the floating city and the landscape beyond. "This will be your home while you are here," Syra explained. "We want you to feel comfortable." "Comfortable," Daniel repeated, still overwhelmed. "This place is incredible. But why go to all this trouble for me?" Syra hesitated, her expression unreadable. "There are reasons we have not yet shared. For now, rest and explore. Tomorrow, you will begin to understand why you were brought here." With that, she turned and left, leaving Daniel alone in the opulent room. He sank onto a chair, or what he thought was a chair, and stared out the window. His mind raced with questions. What did the Verith really want from him? Why had they chosen him, of all people? And what would happen next? For the first time in years, Daniel felt truly alive, but also completely unsure of what lay ahead. The next morning, Daniel woke up to find a tray of strange but delicious-looking food waiting for him. The dishes were vibrant, with colors that seemed almost too bright to be natural. There were slices of fruit that shimmered like jewels, small pastries that smelled sweet and spicy, and a drink that sparkled faintly as if it had stars trapped inside. Hesitant at first, Daniel took a bite of one of the pastries. It melted in his mouth, filling it with a flavor he couldn't quite describe. Something between honey and vanilla, but richer. As he ate, a soft chime echoed through the room, and a glowing screen appeared on one of the walls. Words scrolled across it, welcoming him to Zalora and inviting him to explore the city. Curious, Daniel decided to step outside. When he opened the door, he found a Verith guide waiting for him. A tall, slender being with silver skin and eyes that glowed a soft green. "I am Lirin," the guide said, bowing slightly. "I will show you our world today." Daniel nodded, feeling both nervous and excited. "Thanks. I could use the company." Lirin led him through the floating city, explaining its wonders as they walked. The streets were alive with activity, but there was no noise. No honking cars or shouting voices. Instead, the air buzzed softly with energy, and the Verith communicated silently, their thoughts somehow blending into the atmosphere. Daniel noticed how everyone moved with purpose, yet there was an underlying calmness that made him feel at ease. They visited gardens where plants glowed faintly, their leaves changing colors as if responding to unseen music. They stopped by fountains that sprayed liquid light instead of water, creating rainbows that danced in the air. At one point, Daniel saw a group of Varith children playing with creatures that looked like tiny dragons. The children laughed, their joy infectious, and Daniel couldn't help but smile. But as the day went on, Daniel began to notice something strange. Wherever he went, people, or rather, Varith, stared at him. Some approached cautiously, asking questions about Earth or complimenting his appearance. Others simply watched from a distance, their glowing eyes following his every move. "They're fascinated by you," Lurin explained when Daniel asked about it. "Humans are rare here. Your features, your mannerisms, they find them intriguing." "Really?" Daniel said, scratching the back of his neck. "I'm just me. Nothing special." "To them, you are unique," Lurin replied. "And desirable." Daniel blinked. "Desirable? What does that mean?" Lurin hesitated, then smiled faintly. "You will see soon enough." By the time they returned to Daniel's quarters, he was exhausted but intrigued. As he sat by the window, gazing out at the glowing city, he realized something. The attention he'd received wasn't just curiosity. It felt personal. He remembered the way some of the Varith had looked at him, their expressions warm and admiring. It reminded him of how people acted when they were interested in someone, romantically. Could that be what Lurin meant? Was he attractive to them? Before he could think too much about it, another message appeared on the glowing screen. This time, it was an invitation to a formal gathering hosted by Silra later that evening. The words "honored guest" stood out, making Daniel's stomach twist with nerves. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Whatever was happening here, it was bigger than he'd imagined. And as much as he wanted answers, part of him wondered if he was ready for what came next. Daniel spent the afternoon trying to prepare himself for the evening's gathering, though he wasn't sure how to get ready for something so unfamiliar. He stood in front of a mirror-like surface in his quarters, smoothing out the sleek silver tunic the Varith had provided for him. It fit perfectly, almost as if it had been made just for him, and its soft glow seemed to shift depending on how he moved. Despite the elegance of the outfit, Daniel couldn't shake his nervousness. "What am I even doing here?" he muttered to himself, shaking his head. "I'm just a retired engineer from Earth. Why are they treating me like some kind of celebrity?" His thoughts were interrupted by a gentle knock at the door. When he opened it, he found a young Xeloran woman standing there. Her skin shimmered faintly, but unlike the other Varith he'd met, her presence felt warm and inviting. She smiled at him, her large, luminous eyes filled with kindness. "I'm Alina," she said, her voice soft and melodic. "Sidra asked me to escort you to the gathering." Daniel nodded, feeling a bit more at ease. "Thanks. I'm Daniel. Nice to meet you." Alina tilted her head slightly, studying him with curiosity. "You seem different from what I expected." "Different how?" Daniel asked, raising an eyebrow. "I thought you'd be more formal," she admitted with a small laugh. "But you're just human." Daniel chuckled nervously. "Well, yeah, that's what I am." As they walked through the glowing corridors toward the event, Alina began asking questions about Earth. She wanted to know about its landscapes, its people, and its culture. Daniel found himself opening up, sharing stories about his life back home, the quiet town he lived in, the gadgets he used to tinker with, and even some of the challenges he'd faced over the years. Alina listened intently, her expressions changing with every word he spoke. "You miss it, don't you?" she asked after a moment of silence. "Yeah," Daniel admitted. "I do. But this place, it's amazing. I've never seen anything like it." Alina smiled softly. "Xelor is special, but it can also feel distant. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to live somewhere simpler, like your world." Her words surprised Daniel. He hadn't expected someone from such an advanced society to long for simplicity. "Maybe one day you'll visit Earth," he suggested. "It's not perfect, but it has its own kind of beauty." When they arrived at the gathering, Daniel was struck by the grandeur of the setting. The room was vast, with ceilings that seemed to stretch into infinity. Glowing orbs floated above, casting soft light over tables, filled with exotic foods and drinks. Groups of Varith mingled, their conversations silent but animated. As soon as Daniel entered, all eyes turned to him. Elena leaned closer, whispering, "Just relax. They're curious, but they mean well." Syra approached them shortly after, her golden skin gleaming under the light. "Welcome, Daniel," she said warmly. "I trust you're enjoying your time here." "As much as I can, I guess," Daniel replied, forcing a smile, still trying to figure everything out. Syra nodded knowingly. "Take your time. Tonight is about connection, getting to know us, and allowing us to know you." Throughout the evening, Daniel found himself surrounded by Varith, who were eager to speak with him. Some asked technical questions about Earth's technology, while others simply wanted to hear his thoughts on topics ranging from art to philosophy. Though flattered, Daniel grew weary of the constant attention. It wasn't until he returned to Elena's side that he felt a sense of calm. "You're handling this well," she said, watching him closely. "Most humans wouldn't adapt so quickly." "Thanks," Daniel replied, meeting her gaze. "But honestly, I wouldn't have made it this far without you." Elena's smile widened, and for the first time since arriving on Zalora, Daniel felt like he might actually belong. Over the next few days, Daniel found himself spending more and more time with Elena. She had a way of making him feel comfortable, even in a world that was so foreign to him. They explored the floating city together, visiting places Daniel hadn't seen before, hidden gardens where plants sang softly when touched, libraries filled with glowing crystals instead of books, and observation decks that offered breathtaking views of Zelora's twin suns setting over the horizon. As they walked, Elena continued to ask questions about Earth, but she also shared stories about her own life. She told Daniel about her travels through space, her studies of ancient civilizations, and her fascination with the concept of imperfection. "On Zalora, we strive for perfection," she explained one evening as they sat by a shimmering fountain. "But sometimes I wonder if that makes us less real." Daniel thought about her words for a moment. "Imperfection is kind of what makes humans special," he said. "We mess up, we try again, and somehow, we keep going. Maybe it's not perfect, but it works for us." Elena smiled, her eyes softening. "That's why you're so interesting, Daniel. You don't pretend to have all the answers. You just are." Her words made him feel oddly proud, though he still didn't fully understand why the Varith found him so fascinating. But as the days passed, he began to notice subtle changes in how people treated him. The stares became less curious and more admiring. Invitations poured in, from formal dinners to private tours of Zelora's wonders. It was flattering, but also overwhelming. One afternoon, Daniel decided to visit the marketplace alone, hoping to clear his head. The market was bustling with activity, its stalls filled with strange goods, glowing fabrics, musical instruments that played themselves, and fruits that seemed to hum when touched. As he wandered through the crowd, he accidentally bumped into another Varith, a tall male with deep blue skin and sharp features. "I apologize," Daniel said quickly, stepping back. The male narrowed his eyes, studying Daniel closely. "You're the human," he said, his tone colder than Daniel expected. "The one everyone talks about." Yeah," Daniel replied, feeling uneasy. "I'm just trying to get used to everything." The male smirked, though it wasn't friendly. "Be careful, human. Not everyone here sees you as charming." Before Daniel could respond, the male turned and walked away, leaving him confused and unsettled. What had that been about? Was someone upset with him? He replayed the encounter in his mind as he made his way back to his quarters, wondering if he'd unknowingly offended someone. Later that evening, Elena arrived to check on him. When Daniel told her about the strange interaction, her expression grew serious. "That was Kale," she explained. "He's a noble, one of the wealthiest and most influential Verith. He doesn't like outsiders. Why? Daniel asked. What did I do to him? It's not about you, Alina said gently. Kale believes our society should remain pure, that we shouldn't mix with other species. Your presence challenges his views. Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. Great, just what I needed, alien politics. Alina placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Don't worry, most of us don't think like Kale, but be careful around him. He can be difficult. Despite her warning, Daniel couldn't help but feel frustrated. He hadn't asked to come to Zaylora, and he certainly hadn't asked to become the center of attention. All he wanted was to understand this world, and maybe find a place where he belonged. As the days went on, Daniel leaned on Alina more and more. Her calm presence helped him navigate the challenges of his new life, and her honesty reminded him of the simple joys he'd left behind on Earth. Slowly but surely, he began to realize that perhaps being different wasn't such a bad thing after all. Kel's warning lingered in Daniel's mind, casting a shadow over the excitement he had begun to feel about Zaylora. The noble's cold words echoed in his thoughts, making him question whether he truly belonged here. Was he just a novelty to the Verith, a fleeting curiosity that would fade once the initial fascination wore off? Despite Alina's reassurances, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was brewing. It didn't take long for Kel to make his move. Over the next few days, rumors began spreading through the floating city. Whispers reached Daniel's ears, accusations that he wasn't here to help the Verith, but to gain power and status for himself. Some even claimed he was using his charm to manipulate their society. At first, Daniel dismissed the gossip as harmless jealousy, but when invitations to gatherings started dwindling, he realized the damage was real. One evening, as Daniel sat alone in his quarters, Alina arrived with a worried look on her face. "You've heard, haven't you?" she asked softly. Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. "Yeah, I've heard. People think I'm some kind of con artist or something." "It's Cal," Alina said, sitting beside him. "He's been spreading these lies to turn others against you." "Why does he care so much?" Daniel asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "I didn't do anything to him." Alina hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Kale sees your presence as a threat to our way of life. He believes humans are too unpredictable, too different. And now that so many are drawn to you, he feels like you're undermining his influence." Daniel let out a bitter laugh. "Great, so I'm ruining his ego. That's not my problem." "It is if it affects how people see you," Alina replied. "If they start believing his lies, they might turn against you completely." The weight of her words hit Daniel hard. For the first time since arriving on Zaylora, he felt truly vulnerable. He had no allies here besides Alina, and even she couldn't shield him from an entire society's judgment. If he didn't act, he risked losing everything, including the fragile sense of belonging he'd worked so hard to build. "What can I do?" Daniel asked, his voice quieter now. "How do I prove I'm not what he says?" Alina thought for a moment before answering. "You need to show them who you really are. Not just talk about Earth or share stories, but do something meaningful. Something only you can do." Her suggestion sparked an idea in Daniel's mind. During one of his earlier tours of the city, he'd noticed a damaged section of the energy grid that powered the floating structures. The Verith had mentioned it was a persistent issue, one they hadn't been able to fully resolve. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was something he knew he could handle. "I'll fix it," Daniel said firmly. "If they see me helping, not because I want praise, but because I actually can, they might change their minds." Alina smiled, her eyes lighting up. "That's perfect. It's practical, and it shows your skills in action. Plus, it proves you care about Zaylora, not just yourself." The next morning, Daniel approached Syra with his plan. To his relief, she agreed to let him assist the engineers working on the grid, armed with tools provided by the Verith, and guided by his own ingenuity. He dove into the task. The work was challenging, requiring him to adapt to alien technology and collaborate with beings who communicated mostly through gestures and mental cues. But Daniel thrived under pressure, finding creative solutions that impressed even the skeptical engineers. As word spread of his efforts, attitudes began to shift. Those who had doubted him started to see him in a new light, not as an outsider seeking attention, but as someone willing to contribute in a tangible way. Even Kel's accusations lost their sting as the evidence of Daniel's sincerity became undeniable. By the time the repairs were complete, Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. He may have come to Zalora by chance, but now he was determined to leave his mark. For all the right reasons. The day after Daniel completed the repairs to the energy grid, the floating city buzzed with excitement. News of his success had spread quickly, and many Varith who had once doubted him now approached him with admiration in their glowing eyes. Even some of Kel's supporters began to soften their stance, acknowledging that Daniel's actions spoke louder than rumors ever could. Zalora called for a public gathering to honor Daniel's contribution. The event was held in the Grand Hall where he had first been introduced to Zalora's society. This time, however, the atmosphere was different. Instead of curious stares, Daniel was met with warm smiles and respectful nods. As he walked into the hall alongside Elena, he felt a sense of pride he hadn't expected, a quiet confidence that came from knowing he had earned their trust. "You did well," Elena whispered as they took their seats near the front. "This is your moment." Daniel glanced at her, grateful for her support. "I couldn't have done it without you," he replied softly. "You kept me going when things got tough." Elena smiled, but before she could respond, Zalora stepped onto the central platform. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. She looked regal, her golden skin shimmering under the soft light of the floating orbs above. "Today, we celebrate not only the restoration of our energy grid, but also the spirit of unity and cooperation," Zalora began, her voice echoing through the hall. "Daniel Harper has shown us that differences can be strengths, not weaknesses. His efforts remind us of the value of embracing new perspectives." Applause rippled through the crowd, and Daniel felt his cheeks flush with embarrassment. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially in such a formal setting. But as he looked around the room, he saw genuine appreciation in the faces of the Varith. For the first time since arriving on Zalora, he felt like he truly belonged. After the ceremony, several Varith approached Daniel to thank him personally. Some praised his technical skills, while others expressed gratitude for proving Kel wrong. Though Kel himself was nowhere to be seen, his absence spoke volumes. The noble's attempts to undermine Daniel had backfired, leaving him isolated among his peers. As the evening wore on, Daniel found himself standing near a balcony overlooking the glowing city. Elena joined him, holding 2 glasses of sparkling liquid. "Here," she said, handing one to him. "It's a traditional drink for celebrations." Daniel accepted it with a smile. "Thanks. I think I've earned this." They clinked their glasses together and sipped the drink, which tasted sweet and refreshing, with a hint of something earthy. For a moment, they stood in silence, enjoying the view of the twin suns dipping below the horizon. "You've changed a lot since you arrived," Elena said after a while. "You're more confident now." "I guess I had to be," Daniel replied, leaning against the railing. "At first, I didn't know if I belonged here, but fixing the grid, it made me realize I can make a difference, even in a place like this." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "And what about Earth? Do you still miss it?" Daniel hesitated, gazing out at the shimmering landscape. "Yeah, I do. But maybe missing home doesn't mean I can't find a new one." Elena's expression softened. "Zalora could use someone like you, Daniel. Someone who bridges worlds." Her words lingered in the air, filling Daniel with a mix of hope and uncertainty. He knew he had options, returning to Earth or staying on Zalora, but making a decision wouldn't be easy. Still, for the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future where both worlds could coexist in his life. As the stars began to twinkle in Zalora's sky, Daniel felt a deep sense of peace. Whatever choice he made, he knew he had already gained something invaluable, a second chance to live a life full of purpose and perhaps love.